A few years later, when I came to know the waters of the Cascades, I wanted to get into them. And whenever I did, whether I was wading the Titan or bumping river or bathing in warm lake of the goat rocks, the terror that had seized me in the pool would come back. It would take possession of me completely. My legs would become paralyzed. Icy horror would grab my heart. So what exactly happened that here, whenever he would think of going to the Cascades means to the waterfall. So there was a waterfall nearby and he always was attracted to, he was very tempted to go to the waterfall and visit that thing. But whenever he thought of doing so, the fear that had gripped his mind, the old memories of that swimming pool where he nearly died, that actually came rushing back. And then, it stopped him from visiting this waterfall. It stopped him from actually getting involved with anything that had water along with it. And therefore, he would just remember that incident, that terrorized incident, and he would just feel as if he's paralyzed again, he's unable to move. And that same terror had gripped his mind and heart, and he feels as if he's rigid, he's unable to do anything, as if he was very close to death. That experience just haunted him. This handicap stayed with me as the years rolled by. In Cancos, on the main lakes fishing for landlocked salmon, bass fishing in New Hampshire, trout fishing on the Deschutes and Metropolis in Oregon, fishing for salmon on the Columbia, at Bumping Lake in the Cascades, wherever I went, the haunting fear of the water followed me. It ruined my fishing trips, deprived me of the joy of canoeing, boating, and swimming. So basically, the author is remembering everything, and he's saying that it was not just the place of a waterfall that he really wanted to go, but because of that incident that happened way back, he was terrorized. He was completely fearful of water. So it was not the only place where he avoided visiting, but then the author remembered all the time, all his fishing trips, his plans of swimming, boating, everything just, got ruined because of that one bad memory that he had, one bad experience that he had. So, he's described all the different places where he would go for, fishing, for boating, for swimming. So all those trips which other people might have been enjoying, the author was very much fearful of that. And he avoided going to such places, for indulging into such activities. I used every way I knew to overcome this fear, but it held me firmly in its grip. Finally, one October, I decided to get an instructor and learn to swim. I went to a pool and practiced 5 days a week, an hour each day. The instructor put a belt around me. A rope attached to the belt went through a pulley that ran on an overhead cable. He held on to the end of the rope, and we went back and forth across the pool, hour after hour, day after day, week after week. So one day, the author realized here that, it's been, so many years to that incident, and he wished, to go to those waterfalls, to enjoy, getting into the water so that he could also swim like others. He could also enjoy in the water. He wanted to go on those boating and fishing trips. But because of that one haunted memory that he had, one bad experience that he had avoided doing so. Therefore, finally, one day, he decided that, okay, now I must overcome my fear. I must do that. And the process that he decided for doing so was, he decided that he should just hire one instructor who could make him learn how to swim. And therefore, with the help of the instructor, he went to the pool. He used to practice for 5 days in a week for almost 1 hour daily. And, he used to wear a belt around him whenever he got into the pool. There were ropes that would, that he could actually hold on to. And then with the help of the instructor, he started swimming and started learning how to swim from one end of the pool to another. And this practice, this learning session went on for certain weeks. Now, on each trip across the pool, a bit of the panic seized me. So whenever, even when it has been weeks he would practice doing that, still that specific memory would just come back haunting him. He would just remember that incident that happened, and that fear would again, that panic, that tension would again come and surround the author. Each time the instructor relaxed his hold on the rope and I went under, some of the old terror returned and my legs froze. It was 3 months before the tension began to slack. So this time when he was learning how to swim, so there was a rope that he was holding on to while learning to swim. So every time the instructor used to remove his hold from that rope, so obviously he would just kind of go inside the water a little. And the moment it happened, that memory came back, that terror came back, and he just remembered as if the same thing is going to happen again. He would again drown into the water and he will have to struggle out all the way. But this went on for 3 months, and eventually after a span of 3 months, he started feeling as if the tension was slacking, means was going away. This tension was going away or was getting lesser. Then he taught me to put my face under the water and exhale, and to raise my nose and inhale. So basically this is very important for a person who knows how to swim or is learning how to swim, and that is about the process of breathing when you're inside the water and when you're outside. So that's exactly what the author was taught to do by his instructor. I repeated the exercise hundreds of times. Bit by bit, I shed part of the panic that seized me when my head went under the water. Every time he used to practice doing that, the author would just feel as if some part of his terror, some part of his fear is going away with every practice. So bit by bit, step by step, with those smaller steps rather, he was actually becoming more stronger, becoming more confident about being in the pool, about swimming, and that fear was going in and that fear was going away in a very, we could say, bit by bit form. Next, he held me at the side of the pool and had me kick with my legs. For weeks, I did just that. At first, my legs refused to work, but they gradually relaxed, and finally, I could command them. So the next thing, so here the instructor is carefully defined that how did the instructor made him learn swimming. So initially a rope was given, he was holding that, he was having that belt, and for various weeks he used to just move across the the entire length of the pool holding that. And when he mastered that art, mastered that skill, then the instructor taught him the process of breathing. And after that, when he practiced that, he became more confident. Then the author was taught by his instructor about how he could use his legs for swimming, how he can kick in the water. At first, my legs refused to work, but they gradually relaxed, and finally I could command them. So finally, initially every process was difficult for him, because not just because he was a new learner, but also mainly because of the fear that had engulfed him because of the past experience. And here eventually, it took time for him to learn every skill. It took time for him to actually get comfortable for every new thing that he was learning. So thus, piece by piece, he built a swimmer. So he here is the instructor. By piece, by focusing on every skill, every art, he built a swimmer, and that swimmer was the author himself. And when he had perfected each piece, he put them together into an integrated whole. In April, he said, "Now you can swim. Dive off and swim the length of the pool. Crawl, stroke." I did. The instructor was finished. So finally, after months of practice, months of mastering each skill, the instructor had actually built a new swimmer, and that new swimmer was the author. And eventually, when the instructor realized that yes, now he is ready to swim, now the child has overcome his fear, so he finally told him on one day that now you are ready to swim alone, you know everything, so just dive off, means you just jump into the pool and just swim the entire length of the pool. And that's exactly what the author did. And here it's being said that the instructor was finished, means his job was done. He had done his job perfectly. But I was not finished. I still wondered if I would be terror-stricken when I was alone in the pool. I tried it. I swam the length up and down. Tiny vestiges of the old terror would return. But now I could frown and say to that terror, trying to scare me, what here's to you? Look, and off I'd go for another length of the pool. So here, when the author said that the work of the instructor was finished because he had completed his job very nicely by training, by building a new swimmer. But here the author was still not finished. Like, he was still having that little fear in his mind that what if, all this time he was practicing with the instructor in front of him. So he felt that what if the instructor is not there and he's alone in the pool? Will that fear, will that panic state come back again? So he wanted to be confident, and therefore, he went inside the pool, and that is when tiny vestiges, means tiny memories of that terror actually came in first. But eventually the author, who had mastered the skill of swimming for so many months, he actually felt that no, he's confident, and he was like, yeah, you terror, what do you want to say? What do you want to see? Look. And then he would just go for another length of the pool. That is, he would again be more confident by taking another round to and fro of the pool. This went on until July, but I was still not satisfied. So the author is practicing since October, and in April he got a green signal from his instructor that he's all ready. But then the idea of being in the pool all alone, he practiced that, he mastered that, and that he did till July. Still he was not satisfied. Why? I was not sure that all the terror had left. So I went to Lake Wentworth in New Hampshire, dived off a dock at Triggs Island, and swam 2 miles across the lake to Stamp Act Island. So now the author wanted to be more confident. So what did he do? He went to Lake Wentworth. So this is the Lake Wentworth, and there, he went there and he dived off at the Triggs Island. So suppose this is a Triggs Island, and here he dived off, and then they were 2 miles away. There was another place which was the Stamp Act Island, and he swam the 2 miles there to be more confident, to be confident enough that yes, his fear, his terror is no longer haunting him back. So I swam the crawl, breaststroke, side stroke and backstroke. So every kind of skill, every way in which a swimmer should learn how to swim. So he tried every stroke. Only once did the terror return. That was when I was in the middle of the lake. I put my face under and saw nothing but bottomless water. So the author is saying that it was not like that the fear never came. It did came while I was somewhere in the middle of the lake. And when I put my face under the water, all I could see was water. And that was exactly when that memory came back, that fear returned. But what happened afterwards? The old sensation returned in miniature, means that feeling, that tension, that panic, that fear, that nervousness did come back, but in a very small form. Miniature means it was not as if it gripped him in that same magnitude, but it was in a very smaller form, in a very small way he got terrorized. I laughed and said, "Well, Mr. Terror, what do you think you can do to me?" It fled and I swam on. So finally the author here, by saying this, is actually trying to convey that he now had mastered the skill of swimming. He was no longer fearing the water. He was actually, a very good swimmer. And how he overcame his fear of the water. Yet I had residual doubts, like some doubt was remaining in his mind. Residual is the remains. At my first opportunity, I hurried west, went up to the Titan, to Conrad Meadows, up the Conrad Creek Trail, to Miad Glacier, and camped in the high meadow by the side of the warm lake. So still the author was not completely, feeling that yes, I'm okay now. Still, he had little bit of doubt, some doubt was remaining, and therefore, he actually went to the different meadows from the glaciers in the west to overcome whatever fear that he had. He felt that he had. The next morning, I stripped, dived into the lake, and swam across to the other shore and back, just as Doc Copper used to do. I shouted with joy, and Gilbert Peak returned the echo. I had conquered my fear of water. So here he's moving into different places, different areas, just so as to see, just so as to believe in himself that yes, now he's a very good swimmer. He has overcome that fear. So he tried moving to different places, and eventually, that excitement and joy, when he actually realized, he actually, he accepted that yes, now he has conquered his fear of water. That's when he actually shouts with joy, he yells with happiness. And because there was a peak, that is a mountain nearby, so the sound all echoed. The experience had a deep meaning for me, as only those who have known the stark terror and conquered it can appreciate. In death, there is peace. There is terror only in the fear of death, as Roosevelt knew when he said, all we have to fear is fear itself. So here the author is saying that, the joy, the happiness, the feeling, of conquering one's fear is something that only a person who has actually had the same kind of experience can only understand. Yes, and is the only person who can appreciate that, who have had the same kind of experience. And he's saying that death, because he nearly was close to death in his experience with the pool, when he actually drowned in the pool. So he's saying that, when approaching death is peace, it becomes peaceful. Whereas it is the terror, the fear is only there when we are thinking about death. But when death actually comes, it is very, very peaceful. And then he, remembers that this is why Roosevelt, who was the former president of USA, who said that all we have to fear is the fear itself. कि लोगों के अंदर जो डर होता है, वो डर किस चीज़ का होता है? डर से ही लोग डरते हैं. अगर हम डेथ का सोच के डर रहे हैं, तो वो डर उसी चीज़ का है. बट जब डेथ के पास आ जाते हैं, then that fear, वो जो डर है, वो अपने आप ही ख़त्म हो जाता है. Then there is no fear at all. So, because I had experienced both the sensation of dying and the terror that fear of it can produce, the will to live somehow grew in intensity. So here the author is remembering the same incident, and he's saying that I had experienced, I was very close to death, and that was what was making me fearful, because whenever I felt that as if I am going to die, that fear gripped me. I became more anxious. I started panicking more. Yes, and the fear and that thought, the intent, the hope that yes, I should live more, grew in intensity. But when the author finally in the pool had accepted that okay, now he's no longer going to be there, his life is coming to an end. So he's saying that when you are approached by death, then that fear is actually conquered. You don't really fear it at that time. At last, I felt released, free to walk the trails and climb the peaks and to brush aside fear. So here the author is saying that now I am free, I have conquered my biggest fear in life, and now he feels that now I'm free. I can even go up to the mountains, climb the peaks, because now no fear can actually suppress me. I have conquered every fear of mine. So here we come to the end of the story. where we have seen that how the author actually, overcame his fear. It took him so many years actually to overcome that fear, and how bravely, how courageously, and with so much willpower and determination he actually overcame that. Yes.